Hey guys, as you found out in yesterday's video, I am doing all Batman related video reviews this week, but I'm actually filming this video before my review of the pilot episode of Gotham. So that's my way of doing things, so now I'm just going to get right into today's review. Today, I wanted to talk about the pilot episode for Birds of Prey, which was a TV series on the WB network way back before it merged with the UPN network and became the CW. This show started in 2002. It only lasted 13 episodes, and it was just one season, 2002 to 2003. And I want to say right now, I would like to review every episode of this series, kind of like what I did with Firefly, which also lasted 13 or 14 episodes. But if you will recall, it took me about half a year to review Firefly, and that was back when I didn't really have a whole lot going on with my life. And now I'm quite a bit busier than I was back then, so it might even take me much longer than half a year to review all of Birds of Prey. Having said that, I was also taking the time to write out a script for my reviews for the Firefly episodes, and I'm not really doing that with Birds of Prey, so it might not take me nearly as long to review Birds of Prey. But I would like for this to be the first in a series of reviews where I talk about the Birds of Prey TV series. And that's starting right now in this week where I'm reviewing various Batman related things. So basically, if you are not familiar with the Birds of Prey from the comics, the premise is this is a pseudo Batman show with an all-female cast, and it's a decent premise. I haven't read any of the Birds of Prey comic books. I want to go ahead and throw that out there. I would like to read the Birds of Prey someday. I just haven't gotten around to it. I haven't really gotten around to reading a lot of the Batman spin-offs. I've read a few Batgirl, a few Robin, a few Nightwing, but I haven't really delved into a lot of the Batman spin-offs that are out there, and Birds of Prey is just one of those that I haven't read any of. But I am familiar with the premise of the series, and as far as I can tell, this TV series, is about 70% accurate to the comic books. And when I say that, I mean that the characters are fairly close. There's some of them that are a lot closer than others. Before I get into that, I should go ahead and mention, for those of you who don't read the comics, that this TV show has Barbara Gordon, who you may know from the 1960s Batman TV series as Batgirl, and in this version, in this show, she was Batgirl, and then the Joker shot her, and so she became Oracle, which is basically, she helps fight crime through the internet and through technology. She's helping other crime fighters do their thing by giving them information that they wouldn't be able to have without a technology guru like her. And that's kind of the role that she plays in the comics after she got crippled in The Killing Joke. And so here, she got crippled, and then she took in Selina Kyle's daughter, who is also Batman's daughter. But at the time, Batman did not know he had a daughter, and at the time, Helena, she did not know that she was Batman's daughter. And then she gets adopted by Barbara Gordon, and then we flash forward like 8 years, I think, and they are sort of a crime-fighting duo. And then the final ingredient of this show is a teenage girl named Dinah, and she is this show's version of the Black Canary. Now, speaking of the Black Canary, this show, like I said, is about 70% accurate to the comics. Some of the characters are deadly, like they're just spot on. Barbara Gordon, she is the comic book Oracle. And I should go ahead and mention, I've said this before, I am not one of these people who I get frustrated and angry if a movie or TV show changes something from the comics. Sometimes I am very much in agreement that not always, but sometimes the comic books are not always good. Sometimes they do bad things. And so if a TV show or a movie is doing an adaptation of a comic book, you don't always have to do a faithful 100% accurate comic book adaptation. You can change things, especially if it's going to make the story that you are telling a better story, or if it's a change that makes sense. And that's really one of those things where I just have to look at the change and just take it on a case-by-case basis. Say, you know, this works and that doesn't. And in this show, you've got Barbara Gordon, who is just a perfect comic book Barbara Gordon, and then you've got the Huntress, who is, she's this weird combination of the Earth 2 Huntress and the post-crisis Huntress. The Earth 2 Huntress was the daughter of Batman and Catwoman, who had both retired from their crime-fighting and crime days, and she was a superhero. She was an ally to the Justice Society, and then Crisis on Infinite Earths happened, and basically that story erases all of the alternate Earths, and various characters like Huntress, who could not physically exist in the new updated Earth, she was killed. And then a few years later, it was like, well, we still like the character of Huntress, but we can't use that version of the character. So they created a brand new character who was the daughter of a mob boss, and she was kind of like Batman, but a lot more bent on revenge as opposed to justice. And this version, the Birds of Prey TV series version of Huntress, she's like a combination of the two. She's got the backstory of the Earth 2 Huntress, but she's got the attitude, the kind of angry at the world attitude that the mobster version of the character has. And I like that. I think that's a really good combination. It really works for her character. And in this show that's kind of trying to be Batman without Batman, it makes sense that you would want to have a character who exists to show characters, yeah, this is kind of sort of a Batman show. We have this character who is Batman's daughter. And so she's there to kind of remind people, yes, this is a Batman show. This isn't trying to just completely divorce itself from the source material, like, say, Smallville. And that may be a little unfair, but you know what? I'll just go ahead and address that now. This show is a lot better than Smallville. I'm going to go ahead and say I have no idea how Smallville lasted 10 years and this show got canceled after 13 episodes, because while this show is not perfect, it's got a lot of problems. In fact, just this episode has quite a bit that I was just kind of pulling my hair out like, why are you doing this? You're better than this. I know you are. It's got some problems, but it is better than Smallville. And what makes me say that is that Smallville was trying to cash in on its superhero-ness while at the same time it was trying to tell people that no, it's not a superhero show, such as the no flights, no tights mantra that the creators of the show had. They were perfectly fine with having Clark have X-ray vision or heat vision or super strength, but having your character fly, that's just insane, and we cannot have your character do that. And having a character wear a costume, that's also insane, and we really can't do that. And this show, it wasn't afraid to have characters wear costumes. We get to see flashbacks where Batman is actually wearing the Batman suit, and Barbara Gordon is actually wearing the Batgirl suit. And Huntress, in the present day, she's the only one that really wears a costume, and it's kind of weird because she's got this sort of, like, gothy, emo, daughter of Batman look going on, but she doesn't have a mask, and it really doesn't make any sense that she wouldn't be concealing her face in some way, because it's not like she's a character like, say, Cassandra Cain in the comics. There was one issue where she went and did something that Batgirl should have done, but she did it outside of costume, and Barbara Gordon was trying to explain, you really should have done this in costume. You have a secret identity, you know. And Cassandra was just like, who cares about secret identities? It's not an instance like that, because Huntress does have a secret identity, and she works at a bar. She may even run the bar, I'm not really sure. So it really doesn't make sense in this episode when she meets Detective Reese, who is kind of sort of the Commissioner Gordon of this show. He sees her face. He should be able to identify her, or at least go talk to a police sketch artist, something like that. There really needs to have been a mask or a hood or something to conceal her face. But this show isn't afraid to do costumes. Now, it doesn't just throw them all in your face like, say, Arrow. Arrow has got a lot more going on with costumes than this show does, but this show wasn't afraid to be a superhero show. And that's why I say that this show is better than Smallville, and I don't really understand why this show got canceled after one season while Smallville got to run 10 times as long. But getting back to the characters, you have Huntress, who's kind of this combination of Earth 2 Huntress and Post-Crisis Huntress, and then you've got Oracle, who's pretty much just the comic book Oracle, and then you've got Dinah, who is this show's version of the Black Canary. And like I said, I am not the kind of person who gets angry or frustrated if a TV show or a movie changes something from the comics, but I am going to be puzzled if you try to do something from the comics, but you're taking everything about that character or concept from the comics and you're completely changing it and getting rid of it. For example, the Black Canary. In the comics, the Black Canary is a crime fighter. She's an urban street hero. Sometimes she has superpowers, sometimes she doesn't. Sometimes she's the daughter of another Black Canary who is a comic book character in the Golden Age, and sometimes she's not the daughter of that character. So there's not really a whole lot to anchor the Black Canary, like something that is definitive to the Black Canary other than her relationship with Green Arrow. And they're not really going to try and throw Green Arrow into an all-female cast superhero TV show. So what do they do with Dinah in this show? Number one, she's a teenager. And in the comics, Black Canary is actually a good 10 or 15 years older than Barbara Gordon. And in this show, she's a good 10 or 15 years younger than Barbara Gordon. In this show, she's also got this weird psychic ability that allows her to see things before they happen. So, for example, when she's like 8 years old, she sees Barbara Gordon get crippled, and she sees Helena's mom get killed. And it's kind of, I don't understand, because in the comics she has this sonic scream power. It's like, just kind of like Banshee from X-Men First Class, if you've ever seen that movie. And I just don't understand, if you're going to use a character from the comics, why would you literally take everything about that character and get rid of it and basically just create a brand new character from the ground up? I almost wish that this had just been the Barbara Gordon and Huntress show, and then you introduce this brand new character and don't call her Dinah. Don't make people think that she is this show's version of the Black Canary, because she really bears absolutely no resemblance to the Black Canary. And while I'm at it, I really just wish that they didn't have this girl in it. She's kind of the most annoying character in the show, and I feel like this would have been just a better show if it was just Barbara Gordon and Huntress. But I kind of feel like they needed that third character to kind of flesh out the supporting cast a little bit, because outside of Barbara Gordon and Huntress, you've got Alfred Pennyworth, who's in this show for about a minute and a half, and he's narrating the opening of the episode. By the way, the opening narration may be one of the worst things I've ever seen or heard. It's really badly acted. I hope that this guy becomes a better Alfred as the show goes on, or I hope that the show just doesn't use him that much. For example, in this episode, they only used him for a minute and a half. So if they're just going to use him about that much in every episode, then that's going to be fine. But in the opening narration, when he's narrating the episode, boy, was that really bad. But then you've got those guys, and then you've got Detective Reese, who is kind of this character that you've seen before. You've seen this character in Dollhouse. You've seen him in the Sarah Connor Chronicles. You've even seen it like in Arrow and in Batman Year One. This cop who is trying to investigate stuff that is a little weird and a little out there. This is that same kind of character. And it's one of those things where I feel like this show knew what it wanted to do, but it wasn't sure how to get there. I think that's maybe the best way to describe the show, because I really do think if it had lasted longer than 13 episodes, we would have seen a little bit of a changing of dynamic. I definitely think that Detective Reese would have been a lot more of an ally to the Birds of Prey characters if they had just gotten to the point where they could build to that. And I don't think that they wanted to just start with him being an ally, and I personally think that that would have been a wrong move if you just started with him already being allied with Huntress and Barbara Gordon. So I'm glad that they started where they started, but I think that because they didn't get to last very long, they didn't get to build up to where they wanted to take this character. Anything else? Let's see. The bad guy in this episode, very vague, almost non-existent character motivations. He is a guy who, if you've seen the 2001 Planet of the Apes movie, he was Mark Wahlberg's superior officer in the beginning of the movie. That's where I saw this guy, because when I saw him in this episode, I kept thinking, I have seen this guy in something before. And I looked him up, and he was actually also in the Dark Knight Rises movie, but I don't remember who he played in that movie. But anyway, in this, we find out that he is a businessman, and he went into a deal with several other businessmen to buy the docks, or the area surrounding the docks. And then he uses this chemical to make them all afraid of something. Kind of like the Scarecrow, I guess, from the Batman comics. So using this chemical, he's basically able to force these guys to commit suicide, and so it looks like a suicide to everyone except for Barbara Gordon and Detective Reese. They are the only ones who are like, yeah, this isn't really a suicide. And basically, after he gets rid of all of his business partners, then he is the sole owner of the docks, and I don't really know why he wanted the docks. He's kind of sort of explaining his evil plan to Huntress, and he's saying like, we lost a great leader 8 years ago, or however many years ago it was, whenever Barbara Gordon got crippled and Helena lost her mom. And he's talking about the Joker. And in the flashbacks, we see a couple of scenes where the Joker, he shoots Barbara, and we see the scene where he hired somebody to go after Helena's mom and kill her. And basically, the Joker did all of this to get at Batman. I don't know how he found out that Barbara Gordon was Batgirl, but apparently he found out, and then he shot her. All of this he did to get at Batman, and then this causes Batman to just kind of have a mental breakdown, and he just leaves Gotham City, or rather, New Gotham, as this show likes to call it. And so Joker somehow got taken out of the picture. I have no idea where he is. They don't actually explain where he went after Batman just kind of pulled his disappearing act. But this guy, the bad guy of this episode, he explains that the Joker was a great leader, and that's about all he explains. He says he doesn't even know the big picture, and that he's much more, or he says he is much more of a big picture guy, and that he doesn't really know the small details of this evil plan. And then at the very end of the episode, we find out that Harley Quinn is actually Huntress's psychiatrist, and she is also in charge of Arkham Asylum. It doesn't make any sense at all that the lady who's in charge of Arkham Asylum would also be doing one-on-one therapy with someone who is not a criminal. Even though Huntress has had a few minors, she is not an insane criminal who belongs in Arkham Asylum. So that doesn't make any sense at all, but it's a good reveal when we find out that her psychiatrist is actually Harleen Quinzel. And we find out that she's actually the big bad of this show. And I'm assuming, I really hope, knock on wood, that she is going to reveal what her actual plans are at some point later on in the series. Because as of now, it feels like it could go one of two ways. It feels like they know what the plans are and they're just going to reveal them in due time. Or it feels like they're just throwing stuff at the wall and they really have no idea what they're doing here. I really hope that they know what they're doing and that a few episodes down the line it's going to become very crystal clear what the big evil plan is. But right now, all we know is that Harley Quinn hired this guy to hire other guys to buy the dockyards and then kill those people so that he could own the docks, because I guess there's some sort of thing that's in the dock area that they want. But then later, Harley Quinn, she's acting like this guy. In failing to do something, he ruined her plans. We still don't know what those plans are. I really hope that the show doesn't skip on the details on that later on. That's about all I have to say. I really don't think I have a whole lot else to say. It's a little weird that Batman, who is a character who we see in the comics, is very resolute in his determination. He is not the kind of guy who, after a couple of moral losses, if you will, he would just flee Gotham. Batman is not that kind of person. You look in the comics, Jason Todd died, and then in comic book time, just a few months later or a few months earlier, Barbara Gordon gets crippled. Both of those things happen in a very short amount of time, but Batman still stays in Gotham. He's not a coward who's just going to leave Gotham because a few people who he cared about got hurt. I kind of think that maybe if the show had kept going, Batman would have come back maybe at some point, and maybe they would have explained why he left. But right now, it feels like it was just Batman is kind of a coward, and when someone he loves gets killed, he's just going to leave the city, even though he has built his entire career around two other people that he loved getting killed, and that kind of turned him into the determined superhero that he is. So that's a little bit hokey, but at the same time, you kind of have to get rid of Batman so that you can have these three characters be the superheroes in the show, and they're not being overshadowed by Batman. So I get that, but maybe they could have had something where Batman is presumed dead, and in actuality, he's just recuperating somewhere. Maybe they could have done something like that. I don't know. I'm not here to rewrite the entire episode. I just felt like that one little instance was a little bit not good. But other than that, I would say that this show, it's a lot better than Smallville. It's not a great show. For example, the bad guy's plot really makes no sense at all, and at least one of the characters is really annoying, and sometimes the dialogue is really, really awful in that very early 2000s kind of way of being really awful. But it's leagues above Smallville. It's leaps and bounds ahead of that show, and I'm still a little disappointed that this show got canceled and Smallville kept going for 10 years. So that's all I have to say about this episode, the pilot episode of Birds of Prey. And hopefully I'll be back very soon to talk about the next episode of Birds of Prey. I really hope that it doesn't take me half a year to talk about this series like it did with Firefly. So, until the next time that I talk about an episode, I will see you guys later. And in the meantime, I will be talking about another thing that has something to do with Batman tomorrow. So until then, I'll see you guys later. Have a great rest of the day.